Dear students, today we are going to talk about Plato, his political philosophy on state, justice, education, communism, and philosopher king. First, we will introduce Plato and his context. Plato was born in 428 BCE in a distinguished aristocratic family. He was a student of Socrates. Socrates was also a great political philosopher of his times. He was a contemporary of the famous geometrician Euclid and Pythagoras. In 386 BCE, he established one of the first universities known as the Academy. And some of his major work concerning political philosophy are the Republic, the Statesmen, and the Laws. The Academy became the seat of higher learning and intellectual pursuit in Greece for the next 100 years. The Academy admitted women. In the portal of the Academy, it was written, "Let no man with geometry enter here." Plato considered geometrical method as the way to find truth, which can be used in philosophy and social sciences. This legacy of taking importance of mathematics is carried forward by Thomas Hobbes and Jeremy Bentham. Plato considered that the best way to reform the world is through the science of knowledge, and he considered academy as the training school for future philosopher king. During 431 and 402 BCE, Athens suffered through epidemic, plague, political instability, civil war, oligarchic revolutions, and deep economic depression. According to him, the question, what is the best life, is inseparable from the question, what is the best order or organization of human society. His method of writing is dialectic. This method was initiated by his mentor Socrates. He used the question and answer method to arrive into a higher understanding of a problem. We can take clue from the background of Greek thought, which gives emphasis on reason, inquiry, while taking man as the center of thought. And the Greek philosophy also questions the existing political system. Now let us talk about Plato's theory of form, because in order to understand Plato's ideal state, we must first take a look at his theory of form. In the theory of form, what Plato says is that what we see in the real world is a mere image, shadows of the real world which exists outside the realm of the world of senses. And the very form which exists beyond the realm of senses are the complete and the perfect form. So if we want to develop an ideal state, we have to imitate the best state which exists in the form of spiritual and in the form of a higher spiritual realm. So Plato understood that for the state to exist, we need to understand the theory of the state properly. And now we will take a quote from Plato in order to understand his idea of state properly. "Until philosophers are kings, or the kings and the princes of this world have the spirit and the power of philosophy, and the political greatness and wisdom meet in one, cities will never rest from their evils." This is what Plato said. And Plato built his ideal state on the analogy of an individual organism. He believed that the virtues of an individual and of the state were identical. He was of the view that an individual presented almost the same features and qualities on a smaller scale as society on a bigger scale. Now, we will talk about the features of an ideal state constructed by Plato. The first feature of ideal state is the rule of philosophy. Plato was of the view that in an ideal state, the philosopher ruler should be prominent. He should have a broadened vision of unity of knowledge, and the philosopher kings are immune from the provisions of law and public opinion. That is the first feature. The second one is that there is no unqualified absolutism. That means, though neither there is any restraint of law nor of public opinion over the philosopher ruler, but this is not an unqualified absolutism. It is not all despotism, because rule of philosophy is not free from the basic articles of the Constitution. The third feature is control over the education system. Philosopher ruler should control the education system in an ideal state. In the next class, we will talk elaborately on the theory of education. The fourth feature is justice in ideal state. Justice is the main feature of Plato's Republic and is also present in his ideal state. Justice is the bond which binds every member of society together. It forms a harmonious union of individuals. The fifth feature is censorship of art and literature. In ideal state, there should be a complete censorship of art and literature. It is necessary so that nothing immoral things might fall into the hands of the young individuals who are on the way of becoming the guardian class. The sixth feature is system of communism. Plato was of the view that guardian class should live under the system of communism of property and family. The rulers and soldiers do not possess any property of their own who form the guardian class. The seventh feature of ideal state is equality among men and women. According to Plato, equal opportunities should be given to both men and women for their economic, social, intellectual, and political upliftment. We can say that Plato was the first feminist of his time. The eighth feature is the principle of functional specialization. Plato was of the view that due to multiple wants, an individual could not fulfill all his desires by himself alone due to the lack of capacity. Thus, cooperation among individuals should be necessary to satisfy their mutual desires. Some people are specialized in performing some certain task. Now, we are going to talk about criticisms which Plato faced while propagating his ideal state. The first criticism he faced is that he built his ideal state on the analogy of individual, and his identification leads to confusion. He failed to distinguish ethics from politics. His ideal state is based not merely on analogy, but almost identification between the individual and the state, which is quite wrong. The second criticism which Plato faced is that he failed to condemn the institution of slavery, which was prevalent during his times. The third criticism is that Plato's system of communism of women and temporary marriage is detestable and unethical. The fourth criticism which Plato faced is that he is a moralist rather than a political idealist. His assumption that the state should control the entire lives of its citizen is false and contrary to human liberty. The fifth criticism of Plato regarding his ideal state is by the system of functional specialization. Plato tends to dwarf the personality of the individual. There is no possibility of any full development of human personality in his ideal state. The sixth criticism Plato faces is that he completely ignores the lower class in his ideal state, which forms the great bulk of population. Such negligence may divide the society into two hostile groups. And these are some of the criticisms which Plato faces regarding the construction of his ideal state. In the next section, we will talk about his idea on justice. The ideal state Plato's talk of is based on his concept of justice. The title of his most famous work, Republic, means justice in Greek, and it should not be taken in its Latin sense, meaning state or polity. That means the word republic in the Greek sense means justice or concerning justice. Plato strikes an analogy between human organism on the one hand and social organism on the other. Human organism, according to Plato, contains three elements, that is reason, spirit, and appetite. An individual is just when each part of his or her soul performs its function without interfering with those other elements. For example, the reason should rule on behalf of the entire soul with wisdom and forethought. The element of spirit will subordinate itself to the rule of reason. Those two elements are brought into harmony by combination of mental and bodily training. They are set in command over the appetites which form the greater part of man's soul. Therefore, the reason and spirit have to control these appetites which are likely to grow on the bodily pleasures. These appetites should not be allowed to enslave the other elements and usurp the dominion to which they have no right. When all the three agree that among them the reason alone should rule, there is justice within the individual. Corresponding to these three elements in human nature, there are three classes in social organism. Philosopher class, or the ruling class, which is the representative of reason. The auxiliary class, a class of warrior and defenders of the country, is the representative of spirit. And the appetite instinct of the community, which consists of farmers, artisans, are the lowest rung of the ladder in the society. Thus, weaving a web between human organism and the social organism, Plato asserts that functional specialization demands from every social class to socialize itself in the station of life allotted to it. Justice, therefore, to Plato is like a manuscript which exists in two copies. The one of these is larger than the other. It exists both in the individual and in the society. But it exists on a larger scale and in a more visible form in the society. Individually, justice is a human virtue that makes a man self-consistent and good. Socially, justice is a social consciousness that makes a society internally harmonious and good. Therefore, justice is a sort of specialization. It is simply the will to fulfill the duties of one's station and not to meddle with the duties of another station, and therefore, in the mind of every citizen who does his duty in his appointed place. It is the original principle laid down at the foundation of the state, that one man should practice one thing only, and the thing to which his nature was best adopted. True justice to Plato, therefore, consists in the principle of non-interference, and the state has been considered by Plato as a perfect whole in which each individual, which is its elements, functions not for itself, but for the health of the whole state. Every element fulfills its appropriate function. Justice in the Platonic state would therefore be like that harmony of relationships where the planets are held together in the orderly movement. Plato was convinced that a society which is so organized is fit for survival, where men are out of their natural places. There, the coordination of parts is destroyed. The society disintegrates and dissolves. Justice, therefore, is the citizen's sense of duties. And for Plato, justice is at once a part of human virtue and the bond which joins men together in the society. It is the identical quality that makes good and social. Justice is an order and duty of the parts of the soul. It is to the soul as health is to the body. As of now, we conclude the first section on the topic Plato, and in the next section, we will talk about his idea on education, his idea on communism, and his thought on philosopher king. Thank you very much, students.